Quick recap for anyone catching up, because there's a lot on the table. NCIS closed out Season 23 with two major problems still unresolved. Problem 1. Director Leon Vance is dead. That's not a small event. Vance ran the Navy Yard for years, and his death left a leadership vacuum that every ambitious agent in the building is now eyeing. Problem 2, and this one's personal. Special Agent McGee has a son named Mateo that nobody on the team knew existed. And by the finale, Mateo isn't just a surprise relative. He's squared off against Nick Torres in a standoff, and the show is clearly setting him up as a real antagonist heading into the new season. Imagine finding out your quiet, sweater vest coworker has a secret kid who might be working against the team. That's a bigger soap opera swing than NCIS usually takes. On top of both of those, Gabriel LaRoche is back, and he wants that empty director's chair badly. He's made it clear he isn't playing nice to get it. So heading into Season 24, MCRT is short a boss, short some trust, and staring down a guy who could make their lives very difficult if he lands that promotion. That's the mess. Now here's the fix nobody saw coming. CBS confirmed that Michael Weatherly is returning to NCIS as Tony DiNozzo for Season 24, and this isn't a quick nostalgia cameo. This is a season-long arc. He'll be a regular presence in the Navy Yard for essentially the entire run. To put that in perspective, look at how NCIS has handled legacy characters before. Roma Mafia came back as Vera Strickland for a single episode. Emily Wickersham's Ellie Bishop got one episode too. Even Code de Pablo's celebrated return as Ziva David, which fans went wild over, only lasted a handful of episodes before she was gone again. Weatherly himself popped in for one episode back in Season 21 for Ducky Mallard's send-off. A full season is a completely different animal. Weatherly played DiNozzo for 13 seasons and over 300 episodes between 2003 and 2016, going all the way back to a JAG backdoor pilot before NCIS existed as its own show. He returned briefly in 2024, then led the Paramount Plus spin-off NCIS Tony and Ziva alongside Code de Pablo, which wrapped its one and only season this past October before getting canceled. That spin-off didn't survive, but clearly someone at CBS decided Tony DiNozzo's story wasn't finished. Exactly what pulls him back to DC is being kept under wraps for now. But think about the logistics. In the Paramount Plus show, Tony was running a private security firm in Paris, raising his daughter Tali. Something significant has to happen to relocate a guy from that life back into the Navy Yard for an entire season. This isn't a guy stopping by to say hello. This is a guy walking back into that building with a specific job to do. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting and where fan theory lines up with something a showrunner actually said out loud. NCIS has an empty director's chair, and Gabriel LaRoche wants it. If LaRoche gets that job, MCRT loses a friendly face at the top of the organization and gains a potential adversary with real institutional power. That's a legitimate threat to the team, not just background office politics. Now line that up with Tony DiNozzo walking back into the building for a full season with no announced case of the week role. DiNozzo has the exact resume for a director's job. Years on Gibbs' team, a proven track record, and real-world success running his own security operation overseas. That's not a rookie profile. That's a guy who could walk into an interview for the top job at NCIS and actually be taken seriously. Here's the part that turns this from fan theory into something with real backing. Showrunner Stephen D. Binder was asked directly about who might fill the director role heading into Season 24, and he didn't shut the idea down. He said the writers are keeping an ear to the ground for the right casting opportunity, and then he added something more specific. He suggested that if they could find a way to have a director who's also deeply involved in the actual field cases, that could be really interesting. Think about what that means. A traditional NCIS director sits behind a desk. Vance did that. Every director before him did that too. But Binder is describing something different, someone with authority in the building who still gets his hands dirty in the field. That description fits one returning character almost perfectly. Tony DiNozzo was never a desk guy. He was a field agent through and through, and putting him behind Vance's old desk while still letting him work cases would be a fresh twist the franchise has never really tried before. Is it confirmed? No. CBS hasn't announced this, and the writers are famously tight-lipped before a premiere. But when a showrunner is asked a leading question and responds with a description that matches your returning legacy character this closely, that's not nothing. Let's zoom out, because putting DiNozzo in that chair wouldn't just resolve the LaRoche threat. It solves a structural issue this show has had for a while. If DiNozzo becomes director, even temporarily, it keeps LaRoche out of power and gives MCRT a genuine ally running the building instead of an adversary. That takes pressure off the team while they deal with the Mateo situation, which sounds complicated enough on its own without also fighting a hostile new boss. And here's the smart part. A DiNozzo directorship doesn't have to be permanent. If Weatherly's arc really is built to wrap at season's end, that actually works in the show's favor. It buys time. It lets the franchise keep building toward the character who arguably should be the long-term successor to Vance, and that's Timothy McGee. McGee has been groomed as the emotional backbone of this team for years now. Handing him the director's chair eventually, after Tony holds the door open for a season, would be a genuinely satisfying payoff for anyone who's watched this show for the long haul. So think of DiNozzo's return less like a permanent replacement and more like a bridge. He solves the immediate crisis, keeps the villain out, protects the team, and buys the writers room time to set McGee up properly instead of rushing him into a job he isn't ready for yet. Now here's something worth knowing, because it tells you CBS isn't doing this in isolation. The same week Weatherly's return was confirmed, CBS also announced that Mark Harmon is coming back to NCIS Origins as Gibbs, and not in the limited way he's appeared before. For the first 2 seasons of Origins, Harmon was mostly a narrator, showing up on screen only a couple of times total. Season 3 flips that completely. Harmon is now on screen in every single episode, tied to a present-day mystery connected to Gibbs' time at Camp Pendleton in the 90s. That's also a first for this franchise, a fully serialized, season-long story instead of the Case of the Week format these shows usually run on. So in the same announcement window, CBS brought back its 2 biggest legacy actors, Harmon and Weatherly, for their first-ever season-long, on-screen commitments. That's not a coincidence. That's a franchise strategy. There's a third piece to this puzzle. CBS confirmed its entire NCIS slate for fall 2026, and it's genuinely stacked. October 6th is being called an all-NCIS night, with 3 shows airing back-to-back on the same Tuesday. NCIS Season 24 opens the block at 8 p.m. Right behind it at 9 p.m. is the brand-new spin-off NCIS New York, led by LL Cool J returning as Sam Hanna alongside Scott Conn. Closing out the night at 10 p.m. is NCIS Origins Season 3, with Harmon's expanded role. NCIS Sydney, meanwhile, got pushed to January 2027 to make room for the new show. That's 4 different corners of one franchise, all designed to pull longtime fans back in at the exact same moment, using 2 of the most beloved actors this universe has ever had. Seen that way, DiNozzo's return doesn't look like a one-off nostalgia stunt. It looks like the centerpiece of a much bigger relaunch that CBS is betting an entire fall lineup on. I have to bring this up because it's the question every fan will ask the second this video goes up. If Tony is coming back for a full season, where does that leave Cote de Pablo Ziva David? As of this announcement, CBS hasn't said a word about her joining season 24. The network has also stayed quiet on whether the show plans to directly acknowledge the events of the canceled Paramount Plus spinoff or just quietly move past them. That leaves 2 real possibilities. Either this season treats Tony's return as its own standalone story and leaves Ziva mentioned but off-screen, or there's a surprise being held back specifically because CBS knows exactly how loud fans get every time Ziva's name comes up. Given how much this franchise loves a surprise reveal, I wouldn't rule either option out. So here's where this leaves us heading into October. NCIS Season 24 premieres Tuesday, October 6th, opening a 3-hour, 3-show Super Tuesday block that CBS is clearly treating as a full franchise reset. Michael Weatherly returns as Tony DiNozzo for his first-ever full season since leaving the show back in 2016, and there's a real, showrunner-backed case that he could end up behind the director's desk, at least temporarily, while the show quietly builds toward McGee as the true long-term successor. Whether that theory holds up, or CBS has something completely different planned, we'll know soon enough. What do you think? Is DiNozzo walking into that director's chair, or is CBS setting up a twist nobody has guessed yet? Drop your theory in the comments, because I read every single one of them. If this kind of deep dive is your thing, hit subscribe because I'll be covering every NCIS premiere this fall as it happens, and you don't want to miss what October 6th actually delivers. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.